Hello.
There he is.
I'm really sorry about that. What a balls up on my part. But to be fair, I don't use Zoom, so.
Oh, that's fine.
I don't like digital, funnily enough. But
yeah, that would be a lot more fun in person.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you both, and thank you for inviting me to this. And I haven't wasted too much time.
Not at all.
No,
You look like you're about to introduce a home improvement show. You're all very colour coordinated with your background.
Not the bloody Lawrence Llewellyn Bowen comparison. in the 90s, right? I had hair down to here, long wavy dark brown hair down to here. With this, which is real, by the way. It's not Ponzi stuff. It's real.
That's cool.
12, but and I used to wear crushed velvet red jackets and drive an old Triumph Herald.
Oh, wow, nice.
And frilly collars and stuff, because no one else looked like that at the time, and that's just. It was a phase I was going through, but
what you're saying is Lawrence Llewellyn Bowen ripped all of his quirks from you.
Well, he did, yeah. And someone compared me to him one day, and that was it. I was in Chingford at the time where I was working and living, and I saw a barber pole across the road, and I marched in there, and I walked in, and I said, and bear in mind my hair's down here. I said, short back and sides, mate. And he went, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yes." And he says, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yes." I said, "I don't want to look like this anymore." And he cut it all off, and no one recognised me anymore. And
was that good or bad?
Yeah, it's probably good at the time, in all honesty. Yeah, 1998 that was. But yeah, so yeah, that was the connection there. Anyway, we got that one out of the way.
That was good. That was in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Should we do an intro, or can that be intro enough? That was.
That's a pretty good intro, man. But
that's not a bad intro, is it, really?
Yeah. So here we have Lawrence.
Lawrence Llewellyn Coggins. I've nothing against the guy, by the way, but, you just don't want to be compared to anyone, really, do you, if you're an individual? And
no.
I'm sure
anyone who uses
the other way around.
Anyone who uses that much MDF needs to have something held against them.
Yes, they do. Yeah. Well, a friend of mine built a 15-inch JBL speaker into an MDF cabinet with a bass port, and used to play a high watt through it, and it was a most wonderful sound.
I hope he didn't leave it in the rain.
No, he keeps it indoors. I think he's still got it. Yeah, that's the problem with that.
Yeah. It fit in the car on the way.
Yeah. I can see behind Matt there, you've got that the cabinet and speaker for your small trees amp, or big trees.
Yeah, it's really good.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah, the coolest thing about it is I don't know if it's going to come up on that thing, but can you see all that etching?
Yeah.
There's all it's on there. There's a little leaf on the top in there. There's
I know the amp. Yes, because I used to. There was a local recording studio I did some voluntary work at for a while, but let's just say I don't go there anymore. And he had one of those, and it was fantastic. And I've heard one at Thorpe's as well. And what a great little amp! But that speaker is made to go with it.
Yeah,
that's right.
Just slots in the top.
Single-ended EL84.
Yes, I have to say I do love an EL84.
Yeah,
I absolutely love them.
Mild obsession, would you say?
Yeah. Do you know I bought one in 1977 for £1.02? That's how much they cost at the time, from the local bicycle shop where they did television repairs out the back, and I was only 8. My mate got a Dansette Major record player off someone's dustbin, and it has an EL84 in it. That's all it's got inside it, and it's driven off the crystal pickup and powers a speaker.
Really?
Yeah, if you look up Dansette Major record player schematic, as you can nowadays on Google, it would have been a ball ache to do that 30 years ago. But yeah, it's a crystal pickup straight into an EL84 through a little transformer straight into the speaker, and it's all powered off the field winding on the motor of the transformer.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Minimalism at its finest.
I can see why you're called a beard cultivator now, by the way.
Yeah. It does need a trim. My wife has told me, well, she's made the suggestion that perhaps it could do with a little bit of
suggestion.
Yeah, suggestion. Exactly. Gentle suggestion.
Well, if you're working on high voltage equipment, you don't want it to be too long, because you might conduct a path between the HT and your chin.
Yes, indeed. That wouldn't be good.
What happened with that Ampeg, Steve?
Yeah, I don't want to get into that. various body parts involved.
Cool, yeah. No, I've touch wood, so far I haven't had a belt off HT, but I've certainly had a belt off 240 volts a few times.
HT is no fun at all. It kind of seizes you up in a way that AC doesn't. I don't recommend it.
No. Well, my father had a shock off DC mains. That's how. I mean, he would have been 100 in a couple of years' time had he lived. But he told me he was on a sloping roof next to his grandfather's house and held onto the. Felt himself slipping, so he grabbed hold of the cable, and it was a mains cable, and it was DC mains. So he was like, held.
Can't let go of it.
But because he was big enough, his weight pulled him off, and he survived. But,
wow,
good grief!
That's interesting.
Nasty, isn't it? But we all have close shaves. I'm sure we've all, had a brush with death here and there.
Yeah, a few.
It seems funny until you do it, and then you reflect on it in the coming days and weeks, and you just think, what an idiot. This is serious, and I need to give a bit more respect to the electrons.
I did one in front of a customer once. I was mucking about with I've got this little sort of, I had a little kind of a tweed deluxe kind of thing, and I'd be mucking about inside and had the back off, and then a guy came to pick up his guitar, and he wanted to try it out. So I was just like, oh, that's there and it's on and everything. So I just plugged it in, went to plug him in, and stupidly put my hand over the chassis and literally just go,
yeah. I've done that as well on a deluxe reverb.
He's just like, you all right? I was like, oh.
You need to get up and sort of flap your arms around for a few seconds afterwards. Oh, and it's horrible. Yeah, I was working on a deluxe reverb and put my hand on the chassis and touched the chassis to the main switch, and
oh no. Well, that's not bad actually, because if you had touched earth with the other hand and touched live with it can go across your heart.
Exactly. Yeah. If it's happening in your hand, that's not so bad. And having an RCD on helped. I had a 10 milliamp RCD on, and the thing, it's still the time for that to happen and the RCD going click and saving me, because I wouldn't have come off it otherwise. It felt like about 10 minutes, but it was probably milliseconds.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, when you get electrocuted, time does expand, doesn't it? It's like when you take a video on the iPhone and you want to edit it, and you put your finger on it, and it all goes. That's what time is like. You get electrocuted.
Yes, that's right. It's like car accidents are supposedly the same, aren't they? All slow motion, and it's you can be so close to screwing up on those things. Just yesterday, I was drilling a hole in a die-cast box, and I don't have a proper workshop at the moment, so I had a chair in my back garden with a pillar drill on it, and I was holding this box with my hand and drilling into it, and it went flying around and grabbed my thumb, and I got this little mark on my thumb from a 12mm drill bit.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, I won't be able to play guitar again if that comes off,
Yeah, I've done.
Yeah, the risks we take.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. A good friend of mine, most probably I shouldn't name him, but he makes amps, not Steve, but he used to build all his own cabinets, and he had a tabletop router he used in his garden. So he's doing the thing, but he hand tightened the router bit up. So he was routing away, and then all of a sudden it just goes and just fires off. And
he left the chuck key in the drill bit, did he?
No, he literally just tightened it up with his hand, just to so it wasn't tight enough, and it flew off into the air. I mean, he never heard it come down. So Lord knows where that landed, and hopefully nobody got hurt. But
that's right. Yeah, it's just so easily done, and what can you do when it happens? Just hope for the best, really.
Yeah.
Duck.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, goodness me. No, I can think of loads of things like that, but we won't get into that.
Yeah. Well, actually, we started the podcast on quite a that was quite a cool grown up conversation. be careful with stuff.
It's all about inquisition, curiosity. I mean, I was going to ask both of you, because I've only just really scratched the surface of what you're both doing on your websites, because I thought the least I could do is have a look before this interview. because
we're irrelevant.
I'm too preoccupied with all the stuff I'm doing, you know, or struggling to do. And I must say I'm very impressed, you know, both of you equally with what you've achieved and what you're doing, and I think it's great. And clearly you've got support of a lot of, you know, great customers, high profile customers, and hats off to you both.
Well, thanks, man. I mean, yeah, it's been a long old road.
Yeah. Well, you're both younger than me, I think. But how long have you been at it then? You know, doing all these things.
Well, 20 years started, but then to doing the Monty's thing properly, probably been about 10 years. But yeah, that's been
wow. Well, you must have been at school when you started then.
Yeah, well, I was 20 when I started, just turned 40. But yeah, I had an apprenticeship at Chandler's, which is
I know
where I first heard about you, actually.
Did you know Dave Peterson then when you started?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, he taught me the right end of a soldering iron.
Yes. Yeah, well, Dave's been around. He knows his stuff, and yeah, he's great. I mean, he was my mentor, really, back in the day. Back in the 90s, yeah.
Where is it? I had, because Steve had one of the last dinosaurial pedals.
Oh, the one I sent him last week.
Yeah,
the red one.
And this is
that's the one that Dave did. That's the one that's in the Guitar and Bass magazine. Yeah,
this is a little switch on it and everything. Which
the toggle switch.
Yeah, I made him put another LED in it to tell me if that's on or off, because I'm stupid like that.
I thought I recognised it because I got a little bit cross with him about it because I thought it wasn't that presentable for something that was going in a magazine. But I've filled it out a bit since then.
That was Dave to a T, though. I mean, you know, it's just getting it done, getting it out.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I went to Chandler's in 1994. I met Dave around 1994, and I went down there, and he had an original Univibe in there, and he was trying to get it fixed.
Yeah.
And I helped him with it, and that's what gave me the idea for the doppelganger, because we took the can off the 4 photocells with the lamp, and I was waving my hand above it because it goes, and it's like, oh wow, that's cool. If only people could have been able to do that as musicians, wave their hand over the photocells to get this sound. And I was going like that with one finger and then like that with my hand over the other two. And I figured, well, you can do it at 2 different rates. So when I did the doppelganger for Lovetone, that was the inspiration for that. Although there's vastly different circuits.
Yeah. That's cool.
So he was. Sorry, I'm going off a slight tangent here, but he was important. He was important to me because at that point I worked for the BBC in Caversham as an engineer, and I was playing guitar in bands, and I saw what he did. He had Brian May's AC30s under his staircase, and things like that, and got chatting to him about it all, and I decided I quite fancy doing amp repairs and things like that, and I was about to set up an amp repair business, which I'd have been crap at the time because I didn't know enough about them really, but it's what I wanted to do, and then I met Vlad and we did Lovetone, and then Dave Peterson I was still seeing Dave from time to time, and we met Dick Denny, the Vox AC30 designer, who Dave had written a book with. Yeah. And he heard a fuzzbox I designed and he really liked it. So that was what gave me the momentum and the belief that I could do the Lovetone things. I did build my own pedals, but I just thought, well, they're just for me in my bedroom, no one's going to want to buy those, Boss made pedals. Why do I need to do that? They've got the market covered,
Yeah.
So what made you start making pedals then?
What made me start making? Well, I as a child, I mean, I was a bit of a geek, My dad used to buy me a Look and Learn magazine and things like that, and I had I think 1977 when I was about 8. My dad got me an electronic kit for Christmas. And then I started reading Everyday Electronics and Practical Electronics, things like that. Well, I should have been doing other things really, but I didn't have an Action Man. I used to do that, And there were fuzzbox designs in it every 3 or 4 months. So I got to know how to design a fuzzbox from that. And I did build one of their fuzzboxes when I was in my first band when I was 14, and it sounded all right. I mean, it probably sounded awful now.
Yeah,
that sort of sound, And then I made a tremolo box, and my dad bought me a wah-wah pedal, when I was 11. Didn't even have a guitar. Just had a wah-wah pedal. No leads, no amp, no guitar, but a wah-wah pedal. And I used to sit with it on the floor with my foot on it, imagining, I remember trying to play, in my mind I was playing the intro to Mystery Song by Status Quo, but later found that was a phaser. But, And about a few months later, I got a K Stratocaster. Then he bought me a Vox Escort amp, and he was great. And my parents were really supportive. And my brother, my late brother, now he bought me an acoustic guitar. So that was that. And then the gear thing comes in because as a consequence of playing music. I mean, for both of you, obviously, Matt, you play.
Yeah.
Steve, do you play as well?
Badly.
Well, so do I. But, it's what drives you to do it, isn't it? Really, you get
absolutely.
curious about how the sound comes out of those speakers, and you want to understand the process. And that's what.
So you had your wah-wah pedal by age 11?
I've still got it actually. It's color sound. Yeah, yes, that's right. Yeah.
And so when did you get into playing the guitar? Because presumably he wouldn't have bought you a wah-wah pedal if you weren't already playing someone else's guitar.
Well, I say I didn't have a guitar at that point. I had one the previous year when my friend moved house. He moved into a house, and in the house was a 1967 Vox Phantom in the corner that the previous owner had just left there.
No way.
And he sold it to me for, was it £3 or £5? And I was 10 years old. And that was, a fair chunk of money in the 70s, but I gave it for a 10-year-old. And I bought it off him, and I couldn't get a bloody sound out of it. I tried plugging it into the radiogram, and because I was so destructive as a child, I used to pull things to pieces and ruin them. And people are going to want to kill me when I say this, but I sanded down the body. I took the pickups out. I took all the copper wire out and made a big ginger beard out of it. And that guitar would be worth about 2,000 quid now. Apart from the fact it would be a horribly heavy guitar, but they were cool. It was the coffin shape, a bit like the one Ian Curtis played in Joy Division,
Yeah.
I think that was a 12, wasn't it? But anyway, there you go. So that had gone by that point. That had been decimated and abandoned. And then I got a K Stratocaster afterwards, which was, it was all right. Was
the Vox playable though? Like, could you?
Well, I think so. I mean, I loved the thing. It was great. It was white and it had a rosewood neck, and it had a Hank Marvin tremolo on it and 3 pickups. And the sort of pear drop headstock. Yeah, it makes me cringe thinking about it now.
We've all done similar things.
Well, the ginger beards out of pickups. Have you tried? Well, you probably have.
I actually have.
I don't need. You just got an abundance of copper wire, and you're probably competing with your mate here,
Yeah, I can't actually grow a proper beard, so I have to. Sometimes I feel inadequate, so I just stick it all on.
Oh, the fun we have.
Yeah, like Tom Baker in that Blackadder episode. He had one of those, didn't he? So yeah, that was it. School bands, building pedals, got to try out someone else's Marshall once and an orange amp, and oh wow, those are dangerous sounding, big, scary things. I'll graduate to those when I'm a grown up, And it's only just recently I've really got into Marshalls and Les Pauls because I was in denial about them for about 30, 40 years.
Right.
But as far as I'm concerned, they are great. And I love it now. I've got a standard now, so...
Very nice.
That's nice.
Not a real one, I might add. Please don't burgle me. It's not worth that much. And I did it. Oh, you might be interested in this, or you might not. But I did the Peter Green thing on the pickup.
Oh, turn it around.
Yeah, flipped the magnet and turned it around.
Okay, cool.
And then in the middle, you got the
out of phase thing,
and then you just pull the volume back, and suddenly it comes in, and you know all about that, I'm sure.
Yeah. It's a good little thing.
It's great, isn't it? And he was fantastic, obviously.
Yeah, boy had some tones.
And there's the telly behind you.
Yeah, that's right. That's a parts caster.
Lovely colour.
Thanks. I'll go and grab it. Excuse me. I'm in my jogging trousers.
I live in them now since
wasn't planned to. But this is an all parts body and an all parts neck. It's got a nasty scar on it where it was dropped when I moved house out of a trolley, as happens. got a baseball bat neck. There's a guy in Northern Ireland called Scott Cameron who
I know Scott really well. Yeah.
Well, I got these from him. The body and the neck are from him, and I just put all the hardware on it. A Wilco bridge and a 52 quiet coil Mojo pickup in there at the moment, and a Kent Armstrong overwound neck pickup. But it's great, you know, not too heavy. But and I stuck a decal on it, obviously. But it is Fender parts, so
Fender licensed.
Fender licensed parts, so I figure that's all right. And you got to have a telly. I mean, I've had loads of tellies over the years. Don't know why so many, but
you can never have enough, I don't think, with tellies.
Yeah, well, yeah. This is the worry with Les Pauls as well. Is that should I have another one with P90s on as well? And
there's it's a never-ending search for just everything really.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you seem to have a lot of Strats and Tellys and Gibsons.
Do you know what? I only own 2 guitars. I've got a silver sparkly Telly and a black 335.
Right.
That's kind of it. I mean, we've got like tester ones here and ones we're building. But me myself, I've only got 2. Just kind of.
If you're going to have 2, that's a good pair to have, though. That's
they can kind of cover everything with that.
Yeah.
So I'm happy.
Yeah. No, I love thin line Gibsons. Was always into Fenders, and then suddenly something happened, and I like Gibsons better now. Don't know why.
Yeah, I've always been a Telly man, but it's just the 335 for me. It's got, especially if you've got some decent pickups in it. It's kind of like a Telly, but just fatter and more versatile. You know, it's got more tones in it, which is really cool.
Well, if you play a Telly with 2 humbuckers on it, it's kind of got a 335 kind of quality to it, more than a Les Paul quality, I think, for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know why. You don't see many people putting single coil pickups on Gibsons, though, do you?
No, because that looks weird.
It looks weird, but it ought to work all right. I mean, tacked humbuckers sound nice.
Yeah, they do. I like to have it, the bridge humbucker. This has gone really sort of another geeky way, but the bridge humbucker I like to tap via a resistor, so you keep some of the other coil in. Then I find it balances up. If you split the neck humbucker dead in half, then it still sounds good. But the bridge one gets really thin in comparison. So if you do it with a resistor, different one depending on the pickup, obviously. But it's a really good little option.
And also by doing that, you still get humbucking, don't you? Because the 50 hertz is still coming through. Because it's like a really low frequency, low pass filter, and you get all the clarity of the dominant pickup, but the other one's still filtering out the hum.
Yeah.
So 10K resistor or less, something like that. Sorry, am I being too geeky for this?
No. This is all cool. But so when did you first sort of realise that you liked music and sort of when did that first strike you?
Yeah. Well, I was born very late. I mean, my parents were born in the 1920s, and my dad was a veteran of Dunkirk, amongst other things. Poor guy.
Oh wow.
He had nightmares for the rest of his life about that, sadly. Because in those days you didn't get much help, did you? Probably didn't even in my generation really with anything difficult. Yeah. But that's just unbelievably, awful for him. But he was great, and he had a really great sense of humour as well. You wouldn't think he'd been through all that. My parents weren't particularly into music. But my brothers and sisters were, because they were all baby boomers and they were all teenagers in the 60s. And my eldest sister was 21 when I was born. And the next brother to me was 14 when I was born. And he was into The Who, Hendrix, Cream, King Crimson, Led Zeppelin. He saw Zeppelin at the Bath Festival in 1970 when he just left school.
Wow.
And so I listened to his records and my brother George's records for things like My Generation, You Really Got Me, all those great 60s records. So I grew up on this, and when I was a toddler at the time, and I used to listen to them on the family radiogram, and my dad used it as a baby alarm, in the sense that if the next record didn't get put on, he knew something was wrong. fallen asleep or gone in the bath or something like that. So he would come upstairs to check on me, but only when he didn't hear the next record come on. But we had an auto changer, so there could have been 10 records on and I'd already been dead, you know. But the records go like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my salvation, really, because I was probably quite a lonely young child, you know, because my brothers and sisters all left home, and I just remember being on my own a lot of the time with a radiogram and a dog for company, which probably explains why I'm so socially inept now. If you bark at me, I understand what you mean, you know.
Oh, yeah. I'm similar.
But yeah, it became really important for me. And then, of course, the music around that time was fantastic. And so I was into all that 60s stuff because of my siblings. And then I remember watching Top of the Pops and everyone wearing Baco foil suits and playing glam rock. And I got a distinct memory of Noddy Holder with his flared trousers, his flared, you know, in his boots, and a curly guitar cable coming out of his trouser leg into his amp. I remember thinking that was so cool. But I used to get really excited about Dave Hill from Slade and early Quo, The Sweet, T-Rex. I can remember Bowie doing John I'm Only Dancing. And, you know, I was 4 years old probably at the time. Roxy Music. So I remember all that stuff, which is kind of cool now, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
And then the punk stuff. I remember the Bill Grundy interview, watching that on my own when I was 8, learning all those swear words. My vocabulary doubled overnight. And at the end of that particular thing, there was a black screen with white writing on, and they said Thames Television apologizes for the insolent behavior of these youths. So I learned the word insolent, the F word, the S word, all in one night.
That's good going.
And education. Every day's a school day, as they say.
Yeah. It was a bit of history, though, really, wasn't it? But yeah, I saw the whole thing, all 5 minutes of it.
Can you remember what you thought after seeing it?
It was very exciting.
Yeah.
Very exciting. You know, because I was at that age where I'd bring up swear words at the dinner table. Dad, what does that mean? What does that? And he'd be like, you know, trying to explain it over Sunday dinner what the rude word meant. And we're talking the worst ones as well. It's kind of funny thinking back. Yeah, I was quite scared of punks, actually. I mean, in Reading, where I grew up, you didn't get them for a year or two later, and then there were all the Mohawks, you know, and they're gobbing everywhere and graffiti everywhere and stink bombs in the Broad Street Mall or the Butt Centre, it was called then. All very scary for a young 8-year-old.
When I was about 8, I must have been even younger than that. I used to do, I have no idea why. Somehow I got enrolled in a trampolining club. I must have been 5 or 6 because I feel like it was 1980. And so I went to Billericay Trampolining Club, God bless them.
Oh, great.
And there was this one guy, they must have had 2 or 3 trampolines, I guess. And so they would break out into different groups depending on your skill level and that kind of stuff. And there was this one guy who I was absolutely petrified of. And he was a punk and he was also deaf. So you can imagine as a 6-year-old kid seeing this, I don't know, I guess he was like 25 or something, deaf punk with pink hair. And I was absolutely petrified of him. And my mum said something to the lady who ran the club, you know, would you mind if he doesn't go in? I think his name was Mike. Was his name Mike? Do you mind if you don't put him in? And so, of course, I was in Mike's group.
Oh, you were put in his group. Did you find out that he was a pussycat after that?
He was a really, really sweet guy. As far as I can remember, like 40 years ago. But it was just, punks were, it was supposed to be antagonistic, wasn't it? It was provocative.
Sure, they were. And it must have been very exciting to be a teenager at that point in time, if that was your thing. I mean, I've got a memory of a punk, actually, at Reading Central Swimming Pool, about 1978. You know, this is obviously after punks happened slightly, but you know, the provinces didn't understand this. And he was in the changing rooms and he was naked and he was walking. He had spiky hair and piercings and everything, and he was walking down the changing rooms, and every footstep he took, he did a loud fart all the way down. And I remember thinking, that's really punk and very impressive as well. He had it down to a fine art, you know.
A fart, you might say.
Yeah. He didn't run out of steam either. It was incredible. But, you know, and, I can't remember what reserves. Anyway, there you go. But they were intimidating because I was younger. I remember friends' older brothers were punks, but I think a lot of the music that came out of it, I mean, I'd say half of it was awful, but some of it was good. And the funny thing at that time was it was concurrent with disco music. So on top of the pops, you know, you'd have these really strange bedfellows in the top 40. It was kind of strange, and but yeah, I mean, I had a radio on the handlebars of my chopper bike in the 70s, just listening to all that stuff endlessly, and it stays with you.
Yeah.
And when did you pick up? Yeah, presumably you didn't have piano lessons or anything like that, did you? Was it guitar your first instrument?
It was really, and the irony of this is we used to live next door to a piano teacher when I was a very small child, and apparently I was deemed a natural on the piano when I played on it, but my parents did absolutely nothing about it. Probably didn't want to pay for all the lessons. But yeah, and guitars were the thing. I don't know what it is. It's probably, you know, the Freudian thing, isn't it? The phallic thing.
Well, also,
one would like not to think so.
But it sounds like all the music that you were listening to, which was bequeathed by your elder siblings, was probably guitar driven, wasn't it? So that's
a lot of it. Yeah. I mean, and I started buying records when I was 6 years old. One of my first singles was Queen, Killer Queen. You know, when it was an ex jukebox single. So this has been about 75. So I was 6 years old, and I bought it 32.5 pence. They were. And they were covered in scuff marks where they'd been in the jukebox, but you couldn't hear it on our crappy old radiogram. And just listening to Brian May's guitar work on that, and then seeing Bohemian Rhapsody on the telly, and so I loved Queen, and well, yeah, I mean, most people did at the time. Yeah, it was just amazing. Big Beatles fan, you know. And John Lennon, of course, would be 80 today.
Wow,
wasn't it? So he's been gone as long as he was around, but yeah, I love the Beatles. Yeah, I mean, all that stuff, and I still listen to it now. Really, I'm ashamed to say I'm not very clued up on present day music. Really, probably haven't been for about 25 years.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I only find out new bands. It's like when I started actually having people work with me. At the workshop, so they come in and start putting stuff on, and that's when I've started learning new stuff.
Yeah, you find out because you wouldn't be necessarily exposing yourself to it unless someone else made it available to you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm terrible for keeping myself in my comfort zone with those kind of things, so I just listen to the same things over and over and over again. But yeah.
But as you get older, music possibly serves a different purpose, doesn't it? Or it takes on different roles in your life because you listen to it for comfort, or you listen to it for distraction, and also time becomes a factor because you're not just sitting in your bedroom waiting for your mum to call you for dinner. You've actually got to make the dinner, and you've been at work all day and all of that kind of stuff, so your disposable time to search out new music is diminished fairly significantly compared to being a teenager.
These things are all true.
That's my excuse anyway.
No, I like that excuse, and I go along with it. I mean, my children are both teenagers now, and I discovered System of a Down through my son, and you know, my daughter discovered for herself Nirvana, and I said, "Oh, I saw them." What, you saw them? Yes, I did, and they were brilliant. You know,
where did you see them?
Reading Festival 1991. 91, the first year they played there, when they were on in the afternoon. And they had the guy from the Vaselines playing with them, I think, and this dancer, Tony, on stage. And it's on YouTube. It's 23rd of August, 1991, Richfield Avenue, Reading festival, and I was stood underneath the cameraman at the corner of the front of the mixing tower with my friend Becky. And you can actually hear our voices laughing because we're right below that. It's all done off the camera on the video recorder, sadly, so sound quality is awful. But you can hear our voices laughing just before they go into Smells Like Teen Spirit, which hadn't yet been released. It was a month away from its release, I guess, or getting the charts. And at the beginning, no one's going mental, you know, because they would once it had become a hit.
Yeah.
But they were fantastic. And that's the one where he walks backwards to the front of the stage and then runs up and jumps into the drum kit and breaks his arm. Chris Novoselic is throwing his Gibson grabber bass up in the air and it comes down, and I say, yeah, I'd like to do that to a Gibson grabber as well.
Yeah.
They're probably very good basses, actually. But they were great. And what I remember about that is that after every song, none of us knew who they were. We thought Nirvana, wasn't that a band in the 60s, or was it a cult song off the Love album? We saw them, and after every song, strangers were going to each other and going, God, that was good. Great band.
Yeah.
Every song. And they were so funny as well, because obviously the tragedy of him dying and everything is taints the thing, but they were a lot of fun as well. And I think they were great. I mean, you know, not everyone's cup of tea perhaps, but I think they're pretty popular, weren't they?
Yeah. A little bit.
But the grunge era was the last time I was really into contemporary music, actually, in all honesty.
There was a lot of good music around, like the moniker grunge was a bit of a weird kind of label, wasn't it? Because it was rock music. Yes, there were lots of them gravitating to Seattle, I guess, but probably because it was cheap and miserable. But yeah, the music wasn't necessarily, I guess there was a coherence to it, but it wasn't all, it wouldn't be in a normal pigeonhole of music, would it? Grunge?
No. Well, it was a convenient label for the media, the same as Britpop was a few years later, wasn't it? And but so many great bands from that period, I think. And in the late 80s, I mean, personally, in the 80s, I didn't really like 80s music much at the time. Some of it I did. The early 80s actually was pretty good. But, you know, I was listening to R.E.M. and the Smiths, who I saw as well, which I was very lucky to see them. And then by the late 80s, it was getting pretty, I don't know, grim for me. I didn't like a lot of the bands. And then the alternate rock thing came out, alternative rock, with Pixies, Sonic Youth, Dinosaur Jr.
Yeah, I love them.
Them and Nirvana, they were my favourites. And I know you like Smashing Pumpkins, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, big fan of Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah, I was listening to them earlier on, actually, and the drummer was great.
Oh, my goodness. It's so... The way what he played, you could almost... sounds stupid that I'm even vocalizing this, but it's almost, he plays in a way that you can almost imagine what the riff was without hearing it. Like you can imagine the melody of the riff without hearing it, because he plays so tonally, as well as rhythmically. He plays so tonally, and I always found that absolutely fascinating. He's one of my favorite drummers. Almost none, apart from maybe John Bonham. Yeah,
well, we all love John Bonham, and Bill Bruford's one of my favourites, actually. But that's the prog end of things, or the jazz end of things, really. But yeah, I was listening to them, and I hadn't listened to them in a long time. I remember you mentioning them, and I thought, I'm going to have a listen again. And I was listening to the Pisces Iscariot thing. That's a B-side.
Oh my goodness, that was the first Pumpkins record that I had.
Right. And it's all B-sides, and some of them are instrumentals, and it's very sparse, a lot of it, but it's great. The space in it.
Yeah, it's very, very good. And there were the big trees. Now, here we go. We're going to draw the circle around various careers here. So when the first time I came into contact with Lovetone pedals was 1998, I think it must have been, or 97, I think it must have been.
Okay.
And Flood, who obviously was associated with the Pumpkins a lot, he had just bought all of the pedals, and he had them on. You did a pedal board, didn't you?
Yeah, I designed that pedal board.
a steel pedal
In
board.
an
So
afternoon.
he had all of them on this pedal board, and I think the session, because I was working at Mute Records recording studio at that point, and he was in, I forget exactly who with, but he offered for me to borrow the stuff over the Christmas break, and so I got to play with those.
He's a nice chap letting you do that, isn't he?
I know. He is, very, very kind, very sweet, and I owe him more than I can say. But yeah, the Big Cheese just absolutely fascinated me. And so there's the Pumpkins influence there, and obviously the Lovetone influence. And when it came to trying to come up with a name for the Big Trees, it was like, well, what got me into the idea of maybe making some guitar orientated gear? Well, it was definitely Lovetone. And there was one of in the liner notes of Pisces Iscariot, I think Billy Corgan talks about one of the tracks not making it onto Siamese Dream because it didn't stand up to all the tall trees on the other.
Right.
And so there was the combination of the Big Cheese and tall trees, and then I was like, okay, well, it's going to be the Big Trees, and then it kind of snowballs all those things together.
I'm really flattered to know that. I didn't even make the connection when I first saw the Big Trees at that studio. I just thought it was such an unusual thing to have the valves exposed, but really clever the way you had the sort of heat sinking protection around them, and the sort of a home baked aspect of it was great. And then I heard it, and it was just like, wow, that nails, Class A EL84 harmonic distortion for rock guitars perfectly.
Well, the DNA was definitely of your heritage, so thank you for the Big Cheese.
You're welcome, and thank you, and I'm very flattered. Yeah. And you've taken something and done something new with it. I'm not going to start going down this route, but some people just copy stuff, and some people get inspired by stuff and do something original with it, and that's what matters.
Well, and that's kind of why the Big Cheese was so exciting. Stepping back to, rather than talking about me, which I would rather not.
Well, I want to know more about you. But,
we can do that over a pint. No one cares about me. They've heard my voice enough.
I'm not sure about that, but okay, I suppose but go on the Big Cheese then. Big Cheese.
So you explain what the genesis, or the lead up to. So you've been playing guitar, playing in bands, making your own pedals and things. So how do we jump from school kid into actually, I could, make these and sell these? How did that happen?
I met someone whose name was Vlad, and in February 1994, I met him. I just had my wisdom teeth out, and I was still coming round from the anaesthetic when I met him. But, bless him. But he was an odd chap, I think, and I mean, I'm an odd chap as well. But together,
where did you meet him?
Odd couple. Well, what it was, I had a original Dallas Arbiter fuzz face pedal that I used to use in one of my bands, and actually pertinent to all this, I used to use the fuzz face, and I used to use a tube screamer, and I used to run them in series. And I figured you could have this 2-bit binary thing where you could have both of them off, one of them on, the other one on.
Yeah,
both of them on together. So 4 states, and that's what inspired the Cheese Sauce later. An overdrive and a fuzz and a 2-in-1 pedal, which of course that's now quite commonplace, but at that time I don't think there were many 2-in-1s. It was because we had these 2 silly sized small pedals and we wanted to put them in a larger enclosure. But anyway, I digress. The fuzz face I decided to sell because it's 2 transistors. I can build one of them. Okay, it looks cute because it's in a round case that was evidently derived from a 7-inch single at the time, and I sold it in the Henley Standard. I was living in Henley at the time with some friends in a house share, and he rang up and said, "Oh, is the fuzz face still for sale?" And I said, "No, I'm sorry, I've just sold it to someone who's really pleased with it." And he goes, "Oh, can you give me their number?" And I was like, "Well, no." They don't want to sell it. They just bought it and they're really happy with it. And I'm not giving you their number, mate. What do you mean? he goes, well, okay. So you're into pedals and things? I said, yeah, I do. I design my own ones and haven't done much with them. I've done one that sounds like Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, I think. You know, that one never saw the light of day, but perhaps I should revise that.
Definitely.
Yeah, because I was really into Sabbath at the time. And, well, I always have been, actually, because one of the first singles I ever heard was Paranoid on the Vertigo label. And I used to think it was Doctor Who because of the swirling thing.
Yeah.
I used to think John Pertwee had a sideline as Ozzy Osbourne, but that's another story. But yeah, so the Big Cheese was my attempt, after having sold that pedal, to make something as chaotic as it, because the Fuzz Face is a chaos pedal, isn't it? But it's very controllable off the guitar because of its low input impedance. And I decided to make a sort of a mashup between a Big Muff and a Fuzz Face, because the Big Muff was the iconic pedal of the 90s because of all the grunge bands, so-called grunge bands. And Jay Mascis, the sound he got, you know, I saw him with, I mean, I'm deaf because of his band. I found out that they always wore earplugs from day one, didn't they, with behind their long hair, but all the audience was deaf. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. Well, apparently so. I mean, I remember him at the 91 Reading Festival with his wall of stacks and his jazz master and his hair blowing in the wind, looking like a rock god. And I was stood about, I don't know, probably 15 rows from the front. And I just remember hearing all of the guitar was coming off the stacks. It wasn't coming through the PA. And I don't think it was. And it was just glorious, you know. So the Big Muff, I bought a Big Muff and I thought it was uncontrollable and unusable. And so I really wanted to make a fuzz pedal that had some bite and some character to it, that would stand out and you could hear what was going on. And it was just it was a train wreck of a prototype, but it sounded good. And when Vlad started coming out to see me, because I sort of befriended him, and he said, you know, you could make these and sell them, you know. And I was like, really? Do you think anyone will buy my crappy little pedals, you know? So I was very low in confidence, you know. And but he was 10 years older than me, and he could see a trick when he spotted it. And to be fair, you know, the whole thing wouldn't have happened without him. He had a lot of bravado about him, and almost to the point where, you know, you could probably upset people by being a bit too forthright with them, but it worked. And he was a great salesman, and none of this would have happened without him. So I doff my hat to Vlad for that. You know, we don't really have much to do with each other nowadays, but it was very important. And
well, I guess
it was a great trip. It really was.
The thing about being that sort of a character where you can, you know, sell your grandma, or sell someone's grandma to them. It's it's double-edged, isn't it? Because you're like you say, you're always going to see a trick, and you're always going to be playing something, and so it's that line is very fuzzy when you're collaborating with someone like that, because they're going to say, oh, well, maybe I could get such and such, or maybe I could run this or whatever. And then it becomes tricky. So it's understandable if relationships become strained. And
we had a long run, you know, and I learned a lot from him. I like to think he learned a lot from me as well, from the technical aspect of it. I mean, there was a big age gap. I was quite an immature 25-year-old, and he was 35, and he'd been around a bit, and he'd had a hit record in the 80s with the Jack That House Built by Jack and Chill. That was him and a guy called Ed Stratton.
Right.
And Vlad was making these sample CDs for people's sample libraries at the time in 94, and for Zero G, which was Ed Stratton's label. And I think a lot of pop records at the time sampled these guitar and funk bass sounds he was doing. And I developed the Meatball with him, and he used the Meatball on those CDs as a kind of vehicle to bring it some prominence. And he had a lot of contacts in the music industry. One of the first people to put a check down. We had all these £150 deposit checks from the Meatball from people. We put the price up pretty quickly after that. But we went to the bank with this wad of checks in a tool case and said, look, we want to open a bank account. But he knew, for instance, Mick Talbot from the Style Council and Jeremy Meek, the bass player, session guy. And they all started saying, yeah, we want one. And we'd go around to these studios in London and meet all these people. So again, you know, none of this would have happened without him. You know, I'm quite happy to take credit for designing the circuits in them and that, but the truth is, the two of us, between us, did a lot of talking, a lot of listening to music, a lot of debating about why things sounded good or bad or crap, or oh, that's tragic, that sound, I don't want to ever hear that, like DX7s, you know, or, you know, awful. What you want, mate, is a Leslie speaker, and, you know, all this sort of thing. And we were really into the whole retro thing as well.
And so, what about the look of the things?
Meeting.
What about the look of the things? Because they were preposterous.
Amazing.
Well, yeah, and then again, fair play to Vlad. It was a lot of that visual aspect was him, and I think anyone who's seen what I've done since with the dinosaurial pedals would know that the visuals is not what I'm into particularly. But
visuals are hard. You know, it's something that I care a lot about, but I'm not equipped to do anything with, and so having someone else be able to do it, that would be my idea of a dream. Someone that you can trust to you know, present them in it's like framing, isn't it? I suppose you create the work of art and then it has to be framed.
Yeah. Well, your amps look great, so you know.
But I had help on that. I drew out loads of designs, and then I've got a friend who did my first 2 websites, actually, Nikki Doyle. And I said, well, you know, I've got these ideas for amps, and she was like, you're such an engineer, everything's straight lines, why can't you do some curves on it? And then I was like, that is a really, really good point. Why can't we do some curves? And it's not easy to do curves on a table saw. That's why no one does curves.
No, that's right. But you've got the sort of the curved logo and the thing where you can view the valves through it, and the apertures are curved. Yeah, and it looks great. It really does. And they sound great as well.
You do.
You know, absolutely love the sound of them. But yeah, so those first 4 Lovetone pedals were all designed within a year of me meeting Vlad in beginning of 1994, and we started the company in April Fool's Day 95, appropriately. He came up with the name Lovetone, I didn't. I named the pedals. I named all of the pedals except the ring stinger. That was Ashley Slater from Freak Power who came up with that one after we went for a curry with him. A Ruby Murray's ring stinger is what he said it would be called. So we better not put her name in it, because that's litigious. And the flange with no name was named because we couldn't think of a decent name for it. We had writer's block, as it were, and we sent out all these postcards to people, or there was a competition we did. I'm trying to remember now. This was in 2000, and people were suggesting names, and the names weren't very good. And one person sent back one of our postcards to us with, "If it looks shit and sounds shit, it is shit," in big block capital letters. Now, I don't know who that was, but they obviously didn't like us very much. But we were laughing our heads off at it, so they gave us a laugh. So that was but most of the time people were very nice about it. Sorry, I've lost my thread a bit, but the Big Cheese, that was something, just playing around trying to make a decent sounding fuzz box, and eventually coming up with something that seemed to tick a number of boxes together. And the other pedals followed suit. The brown sauce was an interesting one because it was a mistake in it.
How so?
Well, what I was trying to do, I've actually got my guitar plugged in, but I haven't got any distortion on it. But you know, the riff in "Jumping Jack Flash" by the Stones is that. That's on the single, but on the live version, it's depends which version you listen to. Of course, with distortion and not reverb. And it turns out that the single was a Gibson Hummingbird with open tuning played into a Philips tape player, so that's how he got that sound. But it wasn't an electric guitar at all. And same on Street Fighting Man. So I've read. But I wanted to make a box that would emulate a cranked amp and get that sort of slightly spitty, nasty distortion you get off an old worn mono 60s single. And I contrived this thing, and in my haste of building it, I didn't realize I'd connect a wire to the wrong pin on one of the op amps. So when I prototyped it on the production prototype, I made it, and it sounded really banal. It worked, but it was like, oh, this is really dull, boring sounding. What's wrong? And I studied the prototype. Oh, that's what I've done. Oh my God, I've connected it to an input, not an output. Oh no, can I make these now? So we made a batch of 25 to see if any of them got sent back for misbehaving in public, and none of them did. So that was that. So yeah, it was a real Brian Eno moment in a way, because I don't know if you've heard of his thing with Peter Schmidt, the oblique strategies cards. They used to do, U2 and whoever would reach an impasse in their recording process, and out would come the oblique strategies cards and turn on the radio, or do honor thy error as hidden intention was the other one. And that was what that happened, I thought, well, if Brian Eno was making this fuzz box or distortion pedal, he'd say, yeah, let's go with that. So that's not comparing myself to the great Brian Eno, but I just figured that would,
I think that's so much of creativity, though, isn't it? So cool. Well, the unintentional, because if you call it an error, then that suggests that there was a really coherent plan in the first place. And if the plan is just to create something which conveys what you want it to convey, or that you want to convey something, then it's not an error, is it? It's just
no, it's
different than maybe whatever you had in mind. And certainly there are plenty of things that I've done in amps which are not what I thought I was going to do, but it ended up being good. And if it sounds good, then it's good.
Yeah, if it works and it doesn't make anything overheat and or cause any long-term problems, then it's legitimate, isn't it? And I'm glad to hear you say that as well, because I think whenever I've designed stuff, I've always had a rough idea what I want to achieve, but you end up following your nose with it as well. And if where it takes you is something better, then you've got to go with that, haven't you, and honor it. And that makes it more interesting and more fun.
I think you have to hold your intentions for something quite lightly and be prepared to change tack on it. If it's if it's a good direction, then you can kind of you feel it in your soul. If this is a good direction, you just have to trust your gut. Okay, we're going to go in that direction.
Yeah. I used to, one of my techniques in those days to make stuff, I used to build things on Variboard and end up unsoldering stuff and soldering on and just wanting to scream, and throw the thing across the room, which I did do on a few occasions, actually.
Me too.
But I found that breadboarding stuff was the clever way to do it, because then you have your breadboard in front of you and you can plug things in, you can swap things. Oh, let's see what happens if I move this over here. Oh, it sounds awful, or it doesn't work anymore. And then or have a box of capacitors of different values, and let's see. It's like changing flavors, and oh, and actually, I was going to show you this. You see this thing here? One of the reasons I got into electronics as a child was because I saw inside the television when the repairman came round, and there were components like this in it.
Yes.
And they look like sweets.
Yeah. They do.
Mullard C280, that is. And they're just, if I were to look inside something now, it wouldn't have that effect on me. But things were so much more colourful and tropical fish, or, it's like in a tropical fish tank or a sweet shop. Or perhaps both.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, how did it feel when artists who you actually recognized, could hear on the radio, started lining up to buy all of your?
That was amazing. That was just amazing. And the weird thing about it for me, because Vlad wasn't really into the 90s scene that I'd been into. I was pretty hip up until about 1995, and then I just sort of gave up following the pulse, But I used to go to see a lot of bands, and a lot of them, Sonic Youth used them, and Dinosaur Jr. used them, and all these bands I've been going to watch. And then Radiohead.
Pavement, apparently.
Pavement. Let's not forget Pavement. What a great band.
Yeah, amazing.
I love Pavement. And there's an album, one of their later albums, I think it was produced by Nigel Godrich, who did the Radiohead stuff.
Yeah, that's Terror Twilight.
That's the one. And that's got, is it something, Cream of Gold has got Lovetone pedals on it.
Has it?
And Jay Mascis' Dinosaur Jr. album from about that period, Hand It Over, the guitar solo on alone is a meatball into a big cheese. I'm pretty sure.
Wow.
It certainly sounds like, because I modded his for higher resonance, and it sounds like that. And I was just so thrilled to hear those people using them. It's just mind blowing. And then later to find out that Radiohead had used them on OK Computer. I mean, I know they bought them, but I didn't realise until later.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
just great. And yeah, what can I say? I mean, really, really humbling as well, you know. To think that what you do can be taken seriously by other people and actually, you know, I mean, that sounds kind of silly and a bit low self-esteem to say that, but I mean, that was how I used to feel. I didn't really feel I was doing anything of that much value. And then when you hear it come back and people like it,
it's an amazing feeling.
Yeah, I mean, it must be the same for both of you with what you're doing. I mean, you're making pickups for people, amps for people. You're getting to know these guys. You're seeing it in action.
Yeah, I mean,
great.
It is, but it's, you know, it's like you said, you feel like you kind of it's not really deserved, and it all feels a little bit. It's almost a little bit like an outer body kind of.
Well, yeah, it's surreal. I mean, I suppose it's what I was describing then is what's now referred to as imposter syndrome.
Yes.
You know? And I'm sure this happens with bands as well. I mean, when a band gets signed to EMI or something, they think, "What? We're really that good enough to go on EMI?" Or something. They must have that same thing. But
I definitely, for the first, how long have I been doing this? Since 2006-ish. So probably for the first 14 years, I had imposter syndrome.
Until now.
Yeah.
We've got to do away with this imposter syndrome thing now, I think.
Now I have, maybe, in all seriousness, probably this year, I've come to terms with the fact that I am not a total chancer, and I do kind of know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But that sounds like false humility, but it genuinely is not. And you can, both of you, in actual fact, both of you can attest to the fact that is definitely something that dogs you when you're doing anything creative, because you're just like, well, I got away with that one. Thank goodness.
Well, yeah, it's very much the case. And at some point you have to, well, you know, we're into our careers now and we're doing this stuff and it's working and people like it and there must be a good reason for it. Yeah. It's not all down to luck. And a lot of, as you all both know, a lot of hard work goes into it. You've got to care about this to be doing. You can't do what you do and not care about it. You've reached that, no. You know, Matt, you're making pickups because you wanted to know how they worked at some point, and you're a brave man to wind a pick. I mean, I've never wound a pickup before. I'd hate to think how to do it, but you've done it and you've perfected it and made a whole range of pickups that people are using in top bands. It's great.
Kind of bonkers, but yeah, it's just, but it is, you're right. I mean, there's that element of sort of curiosity and everything at the beginning, and then you realize how big the hole is that you need to sort of delve into.
Well,
and then you know, I've had regular, you know, not so much recently, but many nights of like starting in the morning at like 6 and then not finishing until 3 in the morning. You know, literally just like working.
You're a harder worker than I ever was.
Yeah, but then also feeling, because for a long time for me, like the pickups weren't making, they weren't even paying for themselves. You know, I was having to do lots of other things to make that work. So it was, but then fitting in all the time to then go back to working on the pickups and then doing, you know, repairs and playing in bands and doing whatever I could, teaching guitar and that kind of thing.
Right.
Just to all pump it in. It's just the shit you got to do. Well, I had to do. You know.
And I think people don't understand that, because there are so many courses that you can do, even at university now, to do, you know, sound engineering or being a musician or whatever. And they kind of expect, when they finish their course, to be able to walk out into a job earning £30,000 a year. And it's like there's a guy who I hope he doesn't listen to this. Sorry, mate, if you do. But he said, "Oh, I want to come and do an internship with you." And I said, "Okay, well, I can pay you this." And he was like, well, yeah, I was really hoping for like £4 an hour more than that. And I was like, well, you'll be earning more than I am at that point. And, you know, I'm going to have to feed loads of time into you so that you can actually be productive. And like Matt was saying, you know, that he's not going to be making me money for a while. I'm just going to be pouring money into him. And I totally understand that he's got to make ends meet. But I tried to say to him during the interview, like, you're probably going to have to keep various irons in the fire until you're useful enough to me that I can start paying you more money. And I'm not sure. He just wants to jump from what he's doing at the moment straight into this and be earning the same amount as he is doing the other thing.
Yeah.
And I don't think people understand that most of us in this industry have accepted that we're going to have terrible money from the passion that we have until it's established. And, you know, as I say, I've been doing it for 14 years. You know, I can pay the rent, but I'm not going to be, you know, retiring on all the money that I'm making. In fact, let's not talk about pensions.
Well, I know where you're coming from there. I mean, on a financial level, you know, my life's not been too wonderful, really. But I'm okay now. But I didn't make much money from Lovetone or any of that. You know, yeah, I should have done. Really, I was a very small company, and but the thing is, you know, the kudos makes up for it to a great degree. And as long as I can still feed myself and my kids and carry on, and I'm working for Thorpe now, and that's great, you know. And he's great, and he really looks after me, him and Georgia. And I feel like I've you know, landed on my feet after doing 9 to 5s for a long time, because I had to do that because I got divorced and all the rest of it, and I couldn't make a living properly from doing pedals. And that's probably because I've got very little business acumen. But I'm a designer. I'm a geek. You know, I'm not a businessman. And never the twain shall meet, really. But, you know, my hat's off to you for both running successful businesses that are well established and, you know,
but also we're not
setups.
But both of us aren't on our own either. I mean, for a long time I was on my own, but it's only the last sort of Steve, when did Philip come over?
That was a long time ago. That was like 15, 16.
2015. So that was this guy came over from Germany. He wanted to do an internship with Steve, and Steve because Steve you were panicking, weren't you? You're like, I don't have the time. Don't know what I'm getting to do. I was like, well, I'll panic with you and try and take 2 days off of you. But,
okay. So he's worked for both of you.
Yeah, because our workshops are literally next door to each other, and and that was like the first time I had anybody working for me or with me, and then I've had like odd people here, there, and everywhere, and my brother's dipped in and out, and I've fired him 4 times and still comes back. But finally got a team.
Shouldn't laugh.
No, he would laugh.
Okay.
But but now I've got a team. There's a guy, George. I'm not too sure if you've spoken to him. Actually, he's a massive Lovetone fan. He's got like all of the pedals, and apparently used to phone you guys up when he'd have spoken to
Vlad probably. Yeah. Although I was the salesperson for Lovetone in the noughties.
Yeah. But he asked you to do work experience or something. But anyway, that's.
And I probably politely declined.
Yeah, you did. But you know, there's people like him. He's far more kind of straight down the line, sort of business minded than I am. I mean, I think I've got a little bit, but it's like a sprinkling rather than, you know, like a hard nosed thing. And I've had guidance from my father-in-law, who's a business, you know, successful business guy, and literally smacks me into the right path, you know. And Steve,
that's good to have that support. And
but you need it. You need to be able to, you know, ask people, because there's no way when you run your own business you can do everything. I mean, you have to a certain degree, but that'll only get you so far.
Was it telling you to stop the interview?
It said her apologies. She couldn't hear what I said.
Oh, really? Oh, well.
Sorry, Siri. But yeah, you need to make anything work. I think there comes a point when you do need to kind of reach out and get some help, because you can't be great at everything.
You need some external opinion as well, don't you? Because I mean, certainly James, he has talents of like grounding you, but I imagine, like both of you, I'll just go off on a flight of fancy and could spend, well, this new pedal, which is still not finished, has been going on for 2 years, and James has been very, very patient with me and is a lot gentler than he used to be. But you need someone who says, do you know what? No, we're stopping there. And you can't do that because it's going to cost 5 times the amount to produce it, and we're not going to make any money. And without him, I would not still be doing this in this form, certainly. So if James is listening to this, thanks, mate.
Yeah. No, it's really good to have someone who can show you that perspective on it. And I mean, someone told me years ago, business stuff is that turnover's vanity, profit is sanity, and all that. And I think I know what they mean, but yeah. I mean, I've got a limited company now, so all I need to do now is make sure I've got enough in the bank to pay the tax bill when it comes around, and
fun stuff
all,
like
all
that.
Fun things like that, you know. But for people who have a tendency to like being creative, I think it doesn't really go hand in hand with that. I mean, you know, sitting down and doing accounts seems like a good thing to do to me, but actually doing it is not a lot of fun.
No. If you want to get into some kind of creative form, you probably need to befriend someone who can do the business side of it fairly early on. Because otherwise things can get out of control. I mean, we've got countless stories of musicians who have not saved enough for what you say, for the tax bill at the end of the year, and then just assume, well, you know, I'm earning X, so I'll just use the next tour's money to pay my tax bill. That'll be fine. And then the tour gets pulled and they haven't got any money, and then suddenly they're in the hole for like 10 grand tax bill or whatever.
Yeah, that's probably happened to a few people this year, I should think.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
And how are you both finding business at the moment with the lockdown and whatnot? Are people, and the fact that people aren't touring as much now and performing a lot, you still finding people are buying as much? And
for me,
people are doing it as a solace, aren't they?
Yeah, I think for me it's crept upwards a little bit.
Right.
But my unit shifting is relatively small anyway, so I think the kind of people who are going to buy the things that I make probably are insulated at the moment, and therefore because we don't do any advertising, it's just word of mouth. The word of mouth spread is growing enough that the sales are steadily increasing. So yeah, I've been very fortunate, and I got that I don't know whether you can see it very well.
Oh yeah, I can. I've been looking at that for a while and wondering what it is. Looks like a powerful amp to me.
It is. It's a 100-watt bass amp, which I finished this afternoon, and it was ordered. Actually, when's this going to go out? He's not expecting it for a while. It was ordered by Matt Bellamy.
Oh, okay, from Muse.
From Muse, yeah. Because he had on loan a bass amp for a couple of months or something, and then anyway, long story. I removed it, and I thought, well, if he really likes it, then he'll buy one. And about 4 months later, he has ordered one, so that's cool.
Oh, cool, that's nice. So
but yeah, things like that.
Well.
He's playing bass in this. What's it called now? Lonely Hearts Club, the kind of covers band that he's got with Ilan Rubin and Graham Coxon and various other people.
Yes, I've heard of them. Yeah.
Yeah, so cool. I've had a few big amp orders, and I think quite a few people are buying big trees at the moment. But I think Matt has had a huge uptick in sales over lockdown, right?
Yeah, it went kind of crazy. It's kind of gone up 400%, I'd say, just on the product side of things. Because before we had, started as a guitar tech. That's like I sort of started, and then
Right.
whole products kind of thing came secondary to that. And when lockdown happened, obviously no one was touring, nobody was going out or anything, and all our repairs just went off. But then I remember I was carrying my computer, my screen and stuff to my car, thinking, I'll just work from home. I've got loads of other stuff I can do. I've got jobs that I've been meaning to do. Let's stayed at home for like a couple of days, and the orders just were going ding, 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 ding. It was bonkers. As soon as the furlough thing got the sort of launched,
initiated.
That's the one. I guess because the things that we sell, they're not massively expensive, and they're not cheap, but they're not massively expensive. So, and lots of people I know loads of like parents with my kids' school that all took up guitar or relearned guitar or did them up, but it's stuff to do, because we sell basically mod kits, so you can just take your guitar apart and just like change things and do
and you do pre-wired control
pre-wired
looms. That's fantastic.
All the like guitar care stuff, it's constantly sort of trying stuff out, but it's a bit weird. I mean, it's kind of where I wanted the business to go, but it's where I envisaged it being in 2 years rather than a month.
Wow. So it's actually had a positive effect for you. I guess a lot of people have been turning to their instruments and time to restring the guitar. While I've got the strings off, maybe I'll put some different pickups in.
Exactly. And it's, I know a few guys who've got other similar businesses, not necessarily just in the music industry, but they've seen a massive improvement in their business. I mean, it's been, the thing was, at the same time I had to furlough most of my staff. There was, at that point, it was like 6 of us, I think. So then I come back into the workshop having to do all the orders, the packing, everything. It's just me. And then I managed to drag one of the other guys back in. And there was 2 of us for a little while. And it's just, it's just learning curve after learning curve, which is always fun.
Well, yeah, it's kind of stressful as well, even if it's good. If any kind of change is stressful, whether it's good or bad, it seems. So they say in these self-help books I've read over the years. You're grateful for the extra work, but then you've got to find a way to do it. It's like recently I've had a load of amp repairs, and I'm lucky that Paul Stacey gets me to do his gear, and Paul gives me some jobs to do. It's not like 1 or 2 things. It's like a room full of amps and pedals, but it's always cool gear. So it's exciting, and that's why that Wallace amp I was telling you about, that was one of his.
Okay.
It's the other way to find out about all these things is actually to get your hands dirty on all these pre-existing things, and I guess it's like that for you with pickups. And did you sort of study what was in the guitars you like the sound of? And
it's exactly that. I mean, it's just I've been lucky, especially when I started at Chandler's. The stuff that we had coming through there was just it was that Gilmore's Gold, the 00001, whatever it is, strap.
Oh, well, the one he played on Another Brick in the Wall for the rhythm. I couldn't have been in a better place for that, specific thing, learning from those guys. And it was just, I just got really lucky, and I had really good sort of guidance of like what's, not what's necessarily good or bad, but it was just the history of what everything is. I mean, those guys really knew their stuff, and I suppose the shop's been gone a while now, hasn't it? A few years.
Yeah, do you know what? I drove past it the other night, and it's now, I think they're turning it into flats or something, which is
I guess that's what happens, isn't it?
Yeah,
it was a great shop, and I always felt very welcome there. And I went there, and they were a good bunch of people, and I like Charlie as well with his thing in Hampton Wick.
Yeah, that's a cool shop.
I don't really like going to guitar shops, really. I think it's because I spent so much time in that one. But
I can't say I've ever worked in one or would want to. I mean, it would just be insane, the Saturday afternoon syndrome in a guitar shop.
Yeah, but I mean, it's Charlie's shop is one of the ones that I still actually enjoy going to. That's because you go in there and it's not just sort of rows of, Fenders and Gibson stuff. It's so small, but it's rammed with everything.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, there was a toy shop called Aladdin's Cave on Molesey High Street, and it was exactly the same thing. I remember going in there, and you could just about fit down the aisles because there was just all this magical stuff everywhere. And because Charlie's the man he is, he's got all these everything from all over the world, the guys that make these funny little brass bridges for one type of Telecaster made in 1 year, or so, it's all those really
he's got all the esoteric stuff, and you see him working on a guitar. Last time I went there, he was setting up a beautiful old 335, and I just was drooling over it,
He still wears those massive like goggles. I've never been able to get on with them, but they like those magnifying things.
With a torch on them.
So it's that there.
Yeah, I need to get some of them. My eyes are starting to go a bit now, and my patience seems to be going as well, which are two very bad attributes for working with a designer. Hands. Talking to guitar shops, I just got one little anecdote. I went into a shop in Cheltenham back in the 90s, not ATB, this is long before then, but they're on the wall in a glass case. They had a guitar cable with a 13 amp mains plug on the end saying, if you're going to play Stairway to Heaven, Back in Black, The Trees, Smoke on the Water, please use this cable.
Well, actually, a story along those lines. I had one of the guys who used to work here, used to work on one of the shops down Denmark Street, and he said that one time a guy came in and he was fuming how they'd sold him this guitar with the wrong lead. It didn't work. He had to change the end of the lead himself because it wouldn't plug in and all that kind of thing. And what he'd done is taken the audio lead and put a mains thing on it. And
and he plugged it in and watched the smoke come out of the guitar.
Yeah. The guitar was for his son.
My goodness me. That's scary.
Well, it's an electric guitar, isn't it? You've got to plug it into the mains
Exactly.
Well, that's really worrying, isn't it? I remember when I was a kid watching Rock Goes to College, about 1978, 79, this would have been, Rory Gallagher playing his famous, beaten up Stratocaster and sweating profusely. And my late mother, she said, he's going to electrocute himself. I said, no, he won't. There's only 1 volt coming out of his guitar, Mum. Even I knew that then. And don't worry about him. He's going to be fine, But it was hilarious, actually. But just all these funny things, folklore and just silly stuff. I mean, Spinal Tap says it all, doesn't it?
It does. One of, if not my favorite film. I keep on quoting it in family life, and my 14-year-old is like, Daddy, when are you going to let me watch that film? And I'm like, well, it's got pretty bad language and, adult content in it. You're going to have to wait for another year or so before you can watch it. But I think she's got a very similar sense of humor to me. So I think she'll find it very funny.
Oh,
it's a classic.
Yeah.
Absolute classic.
She does the graphics on your amps, yeah?
Oh, she does. She did the Big Trees. Originally, she was doing every lid. And then the ones that we're making now are screen printed versions of one of her designs. And she also has done limited edition ones, one-off designs for people, basically commissions. And then for the small trees, so the one you've got, I can't remember whether you got a hand-drawn one or whether it was a screened one. I
think it might be hand-drawn.
In which case, that's my middle daughter. That's my middle daughter. And the one that's coming out, I'm going to try and get my 5-year-old son to do the picture for that one, so that I've got almost like a triptych, not quite, but
wow, you've done well. I haven't managed to get my kids to do any of these things. I think my son helped me fold some boxes for my tube bender pedals one afternoon, and that was it. He didn't want to do it again after that.
There is bribery involved. There's always bribery involved. Don't worry.
Oh, okay. That makes me feel better knowing you did that. But I mean, well, I was going to say, Spinal Tap. The outtakes is just as good as the film, by the way. If you get the double DVD of that, I prefer the outtakes. The Taxi Driver. Getting stoned with them, but perhaps that's not a good idea. That is really funny.
That's when she's 18.
Okay, when she's 18. I know all about this at the moment. Yeah, dearie me. But, yeah, being a teenager is not easy.
No,
I don't think it's ever been easy, but it's now you have to be so careful because it's easy to do something stupid and then have it become immortalized by the internet, and then regret it forever. So
I'm so grateful this technology didn't exist in the 80s when I was going through all that.
I think all of us are.
I just perish the thought.
Still do stupid stuff.
Yeah, but it's really hard, and it's really hard at the moment for young people because of the lockdown thing as well, and just the whole kind of slightly nihilistic vibe that's going on, and if you're an extrovert as well, it must be awful. I'm not an extrovert particularly, so I'm fine being in my bedroom listening to all my 1960s vinyl records. I'm quite happy doing that. Which is I've got a Valve Hi-Fi over here. You see,
I noticed that.
Yeah, it's mono, a Leak TL12 Plus, 12.5 watts, Class A, a Garrard SP25 turntable with a Mullard 2 transistor preamp built into it. I bought it like that for 70 quid, and it's like great.
Amazing.
Slide it straight in, and then one speaker over here, just one speaker, so I listen in mono. Because then you can just move around, and there's no phase shift, and you don't have to worry about sitting in the right position to enjoy Dark Side of the Moon in stereo, because you don't have to worry about that anymore. Just listen to it in mono, be done with.
Sounds like a happy place.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, it's all right. I'm up on the top floor, and just work into the night most of the time. I'm sort of a bit nocturnal now because I can be.
Yeah,
I don't know. But you guys work a fairly standard working day, do you? 9 to 5 kind of thing? Well, it sounds like you work a lot more than that.
I start pretty early. I mean, not as early as I used to. I used to start at sort of 4 in the morning, 4:30. But I still get up around that time. But it's 5:36 maybe, 7 if I'm feeling lazy.
Goodness me, so you're baking your pickups.
Yeah.
Like a bakery.
Yeah.
A pickup bakery.
The thing is, it gets to 8 o'clock and I'm like... Every time if I go out go out with some mates or whatever, I'm done. I'm the worst company ever. So, but that's the way I need to do it.
Yeah, well, it is hard work, but it's evidently paying off for you. So, and you got families and everything, and you got to do it.
That's it. Trying to slot the work around. Trying not to neglect the family life is key, I think, because when you do that, then it all begins to unravel after not very long. So
I agree, and I'm always struggling with that. Really, I feel like I'm not attending to my children as much as I should, or want to even, because I'm always still fixing something into the night, or being an unpleasant person to be around because I'm trying to find this damn thing. I can't find it. Where is it? And in a flat, But I'm sort of working from home at the moment, and my daughter's at home at the moment, and I have to be mindful of the fact that don't want to be making it too much of a work vibe in the house.
Yeah,
it's very difficult to balance it. But on the other hand, I'm fortunate I can do that.
Yeah.
So what, you two work in the same building then, and how long's that been the case?
6 years.
6 years,
something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's gone like that. But it's the building used to be where they used to print the yellow pages before Google came along and ruined that. But
right, I suppose the writing was on the wall for them then, wasn't it?
Yeah, but we're like you. We're up in the rafters, right at the top of the building.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it's all cool. Nice little unit 12, massive.
Yeah, and you're in Acton.
Yeah, which is, man, you can't get a more beautiful place than Acton. It's
true.
It's full of character.
West London Riviera, they call it.
How far is it from Ealing? It's just around the corner from Ealing, isn't it?
Literally,
it's just up Uxbridge Road. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just talking to Steve the other day about the Who coming from there.
Yeah.
They all went to school there.
Mm-hmm. A mate of mine used to live on the same road as where Pete Townsend grew up.
Right.
But yeah, there's tons of stuff. There was that Ealing Blues Club. That's where the Stones started.
Yeah,
that's right.
By Ealing Broadway. And of course, there's the film studios in Ealing, which loads of stuff happened there.
Well, the old Terry Thomas films were made there, weren't they?
Yeah. And Shaun of the Dead was made there. Because reason I know that is I was walking my dog one morning, and around where it's called Warple Park, right around the back of Ealing Studios. We come around this one bit, and I absolutely shit myself because there's loads of zombies right in front of me. Yeah, they were on a break or something, but they were all just sort of standing around there. And when I looked at it more deeply, they're all having fags and having a chat.
Okay, so then you realised it was all right.
Yeah.
Goodness me. I'm sure there must be some funny stories about things like that with people dressed up in films and then just going out. Yeah. Going out for a wander amongst the local people.
What's the guy in Lord of the Rings who plays is it Aragon? Something like that. Well, it's Viggo Mortensen, I think his name is, something along those lines. There's a story about him. He was practicing some of the sword stuff. He had like a massive long training session doing that. And then he was walking back to his house or something, wherever he was staying, still with the sword, going through all the motions.
Right. Yeah, probably getting arrested for doing strange stuff.
Exactly.
In public.
Yeah. But
weird
things happen.
So I'm going to ask both of you then, what could you name a gig you went to that was like a turning point for you that made you want to do what you're doing now?
Whoa. Mine wasn't a gig. It was Christmas 1986, it must have been, when I watched Back to the Future. It was the film of the day on Christmas Day.
Oh, where he plays the red 335.
Yeah. That hadn't come out by then. But
yes.
I remember sitting there. My gran was sat on the sofa, and I was like, as you are as a kid, it was like this close to the telly, watching the whole thing. And it was watching that at the end, and it was just like obsessed from then on in.
Yeah, it's a great film.
Yeah.
I would have been about 17 when that came out.
Yeah.
I remember loving it then, yeah.
That's brilliant. That's mine.
I think it wouldn't have been a gig, but I think probably if I had to put a finger on a moment where I thought I really want to play the guitar, it was hearing Brothers in Arms, I think. And just being completely in awe of what was coming out of the speakers. Just absolutely incredible. Although my first instrument, that's interesting, because my first instrument was definitely the drums. And I don't know, I couldn't say why I gravitated towards those. I always wanted to play the drums, never had a drum kit, borrowed a drum kit when I was 13 and learned to play them, and then had it's probably still up there somewhere. I've got what was it? Was it a Casio DD10 or something from Argos?
Right. What, a keyboard or a drum kit?
No, a drum kit. It's it's a black thing with speakers, a speaker at either end, and like it had pre-programmed beats, but it also had 2 foot pedals that you could plug in, so you could almost kind of play the drums on it. Right. So yeah, I played with that, and then I only picked up the guitar when I was about 17, I think, and I was just playing that through my stereo. Eventually I got an Argos distortion pedal, which I don't know where that is. I wish I could find that. It was
Argos made a distortion pedal.
They did. No, not Argos. No, not Argos. It was Maplin.
Oh, Maplin. Yes, they did, didn't they? They did make some stuff. I mean, that shop was very important for me. And some of the Lovetone pedals components came from Maplin. Yeah, the control knobs and the battery holders came from Maplin.
Really?
Yeah. So when they were about to go under, I bought up a load of the control knobs because I do repairs on them. I haven't got many left now. But the bloody battery holders, that was a pain in the arse. That was double-sided sticky tape we used in the end, which is so unprofessional. But, I think I better not talk about that anymore.
industry secrets.
Yeah, that'll be for the next podcast.
Yes,
Next one. You want to do another one?
Industry secrets. Yeah,
industry secrets. Yeah.
yeah.
But I was thinking about this yesterday when you asked me about formative experiences or what you grew up, and I think the thing that made me want to do pedals actually was I saw Rush in 1983 when I was still at school. I went with our geography teacher and my bandmates. I was 14 at this point. I went to see them, and we had a seat at Wembley Arena. They were on the Signals tour, and I was at Alex Lyson's end of the stage, and I was looking down at him walking back. He always did this thing where he'd walk back up to it, he'd sort of walk backwards up to his amps to enjoy the sound of it, and then he'd need to change the sound. So he'd walk all the way to the front of the stage to click on a pedal, then walk all the way back to sort of enjoy his,
good for his
wallet of sound, as you would, the trouser flapping volume of 4x12s and all that. And I just remember seeing him making these changes to his board and then hearing the sounds change, and for three people, what a noise they made, and then I bought the program, and then he listed all of his pedals in it.
Oh,
and some of them were silly names, not pedals at all, but yeah, very humorously done. And I just wanted to find out what all these things were, and what is an MXR Phase 100, what is an electric mistress, and and that was that really. That led on to it all.
That's cool. That is really cool.
God bless Rush.
Well, yes.
Amen.
Yes. And I saw Neil Peart beating the shit out of his drum kit, and that was a memory I'll treasure. Bless him. And they were. Well, I loved them anyway, and I learned to play some of their songs, not all of them, because they're quite hard. Some of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. All those suspended chords with the strings ringing out and sort of math rock arpeggios and things. But I mean, I don't know how you feel about playing guitar as part of what you do as a product manufacturer, but I found it took some of the fun out of it for me, using the guitar as a piece of test equipment. Yeah, playing the same old riff just to see if the pedal sounded the same as the other one.
Well, I'm sure we both get sick of hearing the three things that we each play through the walls. Like I know if it's Matt testing whatever he's testing, because he plays three things, and it's bound to be me, but I play three things, and it's when you've got 25 big trees to get through, you're not sitting there with your eyes closed romanticizing and being inspired. You're just I got to get through these because I want to go home.
Yes, so it becomes a chore in a sense, and then you have the it's nice. Well, I stopped making pedals for a while, and I found myself, enjoying playing the guitar again and being in bands and thinking about making music with it rather than bashing out a few sounds. And that's part of the dichotomy with gear and music, isn't it? You can have so much gear to play with, and then your instrument, knowing the instrument and knowing the neck. I'm still trying to learn the neck even now. I'm 52 now, and perhaps I should just accept that I'm not going to know where all those notes are, but I want to learn. And have you been watching Rick Beato at all on YouTube? Or yeah, I downloaded the Beato book and printed it off. It's that thick. He's great, and I think he's done a great thing with that. And just finally, again, the lockdown, learning scales and how they fit different chords and chord progressions. I don't know. I'm speaking for myself. I should have known this 30 years ago, but couldn't be asked at the time.
Exactly.
1-4-5's good enough for most people, isn't it? And a pentatonic minor scale, and Louis.
Yeah, absolutely done. But actually, as are we.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Well, one last question for you. What goes on? The name of your podcast, is that named after the Velvet Underground song?
No, actually.
No.
Okay. Well, Marvin Gaye. What's going on?
No, it was literally because we wanted to find. It was pure and simple. We wanted to find out what was going on, how people got where they are, and it's not, and the journey to it. That's why we do this. It's an interest thing, really. finding
Well,
out.
it is, yeah, definitely. And it's been interesting for me to hear a bit about how you both do what you do, and I'd like to ask you more.
Yeah, but
Meet up sometime.
Next time.
Yeah. When we're allowed to go out properly.
Well, yeah, that's right. And I mean, one of the last thing I'd like to say is if anyone's watching this and they're people who've been my mentors in the past, and there are many of them, there's a lot of people to be grateful to for showing me how things work, showing us how things work, being generous with stuff or with their time. And you can be very driven yourself and want to find out how these things work and spend a lot of your own energy and time doing it, but somewhere along the line you need to ask questions of people. I mean, I phoned up Roger Mayer in the 90s and grilled him about fuzz faces, and he was very, very friendly and very helpful, and he could have told me to F off, really. He didn't. And
that's cool.
So that's another example, Anyway,
caring, sharing.
Sharing, yeah. Pass on the knowledge.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
But Dan,
well, thanks, guys. Thank you very much for interviewing me. And
it's been an absolute pleasure.
I'm honoured and flattered that you wanted to.
It was a joy. Thank you for agreeing to come on.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. You're welcome.
See ya.
All the best. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheers,
everyone.
See ya.